Hey everybody, I'm Shane.
I'm Chris.
All right, we're going to talk about welcome everybody, and happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. It was actually a year ago. I went to go see some customers in Philadelphia, but the real reason I went was because John Williams. If you don't know who John Williams is, Google him.
Sorry,
but I definitely am sorry. But yeah, he was playing in Philadelphia, and
awesome.
It was like I've got the Philadelphia Orchestra. I've got to see it, but we'll go see some customers as well. So I gotta see John Williams playing some Star Wars music with the Philadelphia Orchestra on May the 4th. So
if you're watching from Philadelphia, you should go thank that composer for your visit.
You can blame him.
Thanks, John Williams.
Thanks, Dodge. Every time I hear that now, I'm going to think of Archer. That's why I always have to say thanks, Dodge. All right. Anyway, let's move on. One of the most underutilized, and even people don't even realize A, that this exists, and B, what it does. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Chris, why don't you take the reins here, buddy?
Tools. Everybody loves tools. Tools. So we have this wonderful thing called tools in our product that allow you to kind of do some really fancy stuff to tie in with inventory. We actually have this wonderful thing called the tools library, which we recently added, I believe, in inventory 11.
Something like that.
That kind of has some, something like that. That adds the functionality in with some extra prepackaged tools for you to use in your environment.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully, like to get you a kind of a jump start into using this, because the fact of the matter is, so many of you have your favorite utilities, your favorite sysadmin tools, and the fact of the matter is, chances are you can integrate them within inventory. Yep. And the cool thing about that is, when you're selecting a target computer, you can, if you have an appropriate utility, you can actually execute that utility and its functionality from within inventory. That's the cool thing about it.
It's the amazing thing about it. That's the whole point of this, from my side of things. So if you have a utility that has a command line interface, go to town.
Yeah.
So, just kind of jumping in to show you some of these tools from the tools library. If you have an enterprise license, these are all available to you to take a look at and to import into your library. Mm-hmm. So, here they are.
But if you have a pro license, you can create custom tools.
Correct.
And if you have a free, then you can use the tools that just come with it. So.
Yes. And so if you were to normally click the tools button, the stuff that is up top here, these come with inventory, free or otherwise. So you can use those already. Is what we're talking about.
Are you saying you can't see the mouse there, JJ? All right, so just if we're having some issues, just make sure you highlight it.
Everything.
Right click, context menu, whatever. All right.
Okay. So just as an example, let's go ahead and use one of these tools and actually get them imported into the library. I don't really have a preference, so we'll just use ping persistent. That sounds fancy. So I'm going to come up here and click.
That sounds fancy to you.
Yeah. I'm going to go come click the import selected button over there.
Use Cheese Whiz as well for your wine parties?
You know how I love cheese, and Cheese Whiz is on the top of my list. So,
aerosol-powered cheese.
As Mitch Hedberg said, there's not a lot of integrity to that product.
It's a means to an end. So, there's the tools. Once you actually hit import, it actually gets put into your tools menu, a separate tab that's available. This is how you can organize the different tools that are there. And so we can actually see that the ping persistent kind of came over here.
Gonna step out while JJ hurries and looks at the problem.
Yay!
Sorry.
Go to town.
There's no other way to do this.
Here I say we're not going to let JJ get close to our customers, and now here he is. His mug is right here.
It was an elaborate ruse.
Yes, he's got Cheese Whiz.
All right, wait, you can see it now. Sorry, I messed with your stuff, but
Thank you. Now that you see JJ, you realize our hiring standards are in fact extremely low. In fact, they are extremely non-existent. You can't measure.
And yet I'm still here. So.
And our retention rate as well.
Amazing.
I'm watching the numbers drop.
All right. So we've got a cursor, and it's exciting. So
Get the new PDQ inventory with a cursor.
Speaking of low standards.
All right, run this ping.
Okay, so ping, just to show you what it is, we can actually double click on this and see what it's actually running if you want to preview it before you run it. But it does need to have a target selected to ping. So we're going to go over to all computers. And I'm just going to pick some random guy. Let's do Chase 2 Lab here. And I'm going to use the tool ping persistent. I click the right button all the time.
So let's say you're rebooting Chase, this computer Chase, and you want to just see when it comes back online.
Yep.
There you go.
Exactly. Most of you who are watching this are probably familiar with the command ping-t to make sure that it keeps on checking for you. This is just a convenient way to prepackage it so you can select an item in your collection, a computer, and then run that and have it run, pipe in that information into your little tool that you run, or that you wrote, and then voila, you have magic.
Absolutely. Let's go back to tools and open that up real quick because I want to break down. Once again, this is a very simple example, and this uses. Go ahead and open up the ping.
Okay.
So you can see here we have the button Command Shell. Go ahead and circle.
Up here?
Yep.
I will do the highlighting.
Yep. We have the Command Shell, which means we're going to use CMD for this. You also have the opportunity to use PowerShell. Obviously, number one, I mentioned this in the pre-show. If you don't have PowerShell,
Get it.
we have a package out there for PowerShell. Now, this package will only install on workstations. You can change that in the conditions to make it work on servers, but just be careful on what servers you push it out to. But deploy the latest PowerShell, please. 5.1 is currently the latest.
Yes, side note, creators update that came out, 1703 for Windows 10. Default shell now for Windows is PowerShell.
That's correct. It's no longer CMD. They are making the move.
Yep.
So here you can tell we're doing a ping/t. And then this, what are we looking at? This is a variable. This is a PDQ inventory variable.
Yep.
And basically it's just saying whatever computer is selected, grab the host name from that. How do you find out what variables are available?
It's a good question.
Wipe that out and do the whole thing again. Just,
Oh my goodness. I am trying to select that, but I'm on a different window, so here we go. Okay, so I have deleted this, and I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to type, okay, I want to do ping, t, oh no, what was my variable? Oh, hey, there's a cool little variable button over here. I wonder if I should click it. I'm going to click it.
All right, do it.
You know, that's how I talk when I'm trying to figure stuff out, Chris. Hey!
That is your constant inner dialogue.
Where?
I'm going to click it.
I am missing the mouse cursor.
Should I click it? I'm going to click
Okay.
it. Yeah, I'll click
Yeah,
it.
JJ, we've lost the mouse here. Hold on, everybody.
Goodness.
Show cursor, yes, IONs, yeah, it's there. Well, no, we're not actually able to get it over here. Hold on for 1 second, guys.
Most professional webcast on the internet.
We're just
Oh,
going to
yeah.
do this again.
All right.
Sorry about that, everybody.
Yeah.
We're new at this.
Just utter darkness behind you.
Darkness.
Imprisoning me.
Thank you.
All that I see. Absolute horror. That's all right.
Let's apologize to Metallica now for that, Chris. That was horrible, man.
All right, here we
The
go.
best way.
All right, so how do you get this? You're saying this little button right here. We click on that guy, and you'll see we have a lot of different variables for date and time and system. But here we're going to say computer target host name.
Yay.
And so that whatever computer is selected will automatically throw that in there. That way you don't have to hard code a computer name in there, which would make it very inefficient indeed.
And stupid, let's be honest.
Also, if you can arrange these the way you want, say you want to throw this in Chris's little directory here, or you want to move it on up, etc. And of course, if you want, you can change the icon. Chris, you can see this right here, System Tool. What is that?
Yes, so System Tool, when you have that selected, it basically says, I don't care what computer you have selected or any at all. I'm just going to run this locally on my machine. So for example, say you wanted to open up the Services window or the Active Directory Users and Computers window. You could use a System Tool to actually run that tool from any context within inventory itself. So it does not use any of the variables though. So if you actually put in this computer target host name with the System Tool, it'll give you a little warning on the screen to say, oh my goodness, you actually have something you shouldn't right here.
But there are times where you will want to have a custom tool that is actually just something that you run from your console machine, and it doesn't actually ever have to hit a target.
Absolutely.
Maybe opening the command prompt in an elevated session. Actually, we already have that packaged in there. Or maybe a flush IP config flush DNS.
Speaking of that, I actually have that in my list of tools. I think I have something like
Show
50
us.
or 60 tools in here. So if I click on tools, again, I don't have to have a computer selected. In my table flipping guy, we'll come down to, speaking of DNS stuff, ipconfig, flush DNS local, or the PowerShell equivalent, clear DNS client cache.
And you can see if it's if it's enabled, that means that it's a system tool because there's no computer selected in inventory.
Yep.
So the fact that it's a system tool means I don't have to have a computer selected. I can run this. Go ahead and run clear DNS cache.
There we go.
Hey, when that's done, guys, let's take a question.
All right.
There it is.
Thanks,
Clearing
Lex.
DNS cache. Oh my goodness. Wonderful.
awesome, Lex.
Thanks, PowerShell.
Dear Shane and Chris, when is it better to use a PowerShell tool over deploying a script and vice versa? Sincerely, Monononica K.
I'm going to answer. There's a couple of answers. Hi, Monica. There's a couple of answers, a couple of valid answers. Number one, if you want to run, in this case, a script against a bunch of computers at the same time, then I would recommend doing something like either remote command if you have the script down there, or PDQ deploy where you can just push it out to those targets. Custom tools, you select a computer. There's you can certainly add to that. I mean, it comes down to it. If you want to add anything to that.
Preference, really. Deploy is really good for having your scripts as steps, so you can actually kind of do things. I need to do this, then I need to do this, then I need to do this. It's really good to keep that organized in one central spot. That being said, however, you can actually wrap that in a script, call that script from a tool in inventory. And one of the tools that I have that I don't have here is I go out and check all the different machines for their DNS host, their host file entries to see if there's anything wonky, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just doing it via UNC pass, so I'm not doing a remote connection, but I just have a list of computers, I pull in from AD and go, go grab them all.
Okay.
I don't need deploy for that. I can just use it as a quick tool, system tool, run it, and I can check it.
And I want to call out a difference here, really quick. I'm going to use, so a question that we get a lot, and maybe it's in the queue, I'm not sure, but I'm going to just answer it preemptively. What's the difference between a remote command and a custom tool? Remote command is actually executed from the target. When you initiate a command, PDQ inventory goes out, creates a service on that target computer, executes that command that you specify, and then once the command is over, it disassembles. Whereas a custom tool runs on the console machine, and you can have, depending on the utility that you're using, it might reference a remote computer, but it's still executed here within the console machine. That's the way it's currently architected.
I have a good example of this. Those of you who are in Active Directory and on domain, you're probably familiar with the command gp update. It's a small command that some people know. That command has no way to feed in a computer name. If you run it, you can't say gp update, run this on that computer. No, it doesn't do that way. It runs locally on your machine. Mm-hmm. If you want it to get to run on a remote machine, you have to have some other mechanism with which to connect to it remotely. Remote PowerShell, wink wink, PSExec from PS Tools. Those are good options. In fact,
or a custom tool.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, or a remote command.
Yes. Speaking of tools, lots of them, and GP update. Here's, for example, GP update using the PS Tools PSExec to do just that on a machine. So you can actually select a machine in your list and actually run a GP update on that.
If you, in this case, you've got PSExec installed on this console machine because it's running the PSExec on your console.
Locally, because it runs locally from where you trigger the tool.
Yep,
so,
absolutely.
So,
you have another question? Yeah, go for it.
Dear Shane and Chris, what is the best way to handle loading functions into a PowerShell tool? Dot sourcing from file share, wall of text in the tool itself. Efficiency is a great thing and want to make sure I leverage the library as best as possible. Sincerely, Stephen V.
Hi, Stephen V. Is that what that is? No. Thanks. That's a good question. I have my own personal preference for that. If it's a complex script or if it's longer than, say, 5 lines or something, you can make your cutoff, throw it in a script. If it's complex enough that it requires parameters, throw those parameters into a script and then do dot sourcing. It's really easy. I have an example of dot sourcing.
Yeah, do it.
I have this wonderful tool that I made called Futurama Inspirational Zap. So, when you run this, it tells you I'm getting an inspirational quote from Zap Brannigan. And I'm actually dot sourcing a script that I have out there and then running the little function that I wrote called getZapQuote. And clearly this is the best quote here because it is, I am the man with no name, Zap Brannigan. So that's
I threw wave after wave of my own men.
That might be in here somewhere.
I love that show.
So if you want Futurama quotes, yeah, the getZapQuote thing is best. If we hit that bullseye, the rest of the dominoes should fall like a house of cards. Checkmate.
So here you can see where instead of putting the entire script into this, he's simply referencing a script that he's written out on a file share and calling a function within that script.
You can also see what Chris actually does at work.
Besides quote Futurama.
Which people wouldn't generally classify as work.
The term play gets thrown around all too often around here. So
if you've used PDQ inventory, you've noticed we bundle VNC and remote desktop, as well as remote assist, who uses that, into our native tool. So if you have VNC, you can actually go into preferences, and let's go to preferences or control comma, and under remote control, if you use VNC, you just specify your viewer file and the display number, and then you can, if you have VNC on those target computers, you can use. Once again, this is native. You can just call a VNC session or a remote desktop session. We've had people ask, well, I use another type of tool like IntelliAdmin or DameWare. So if you use another remote control tool, and that tool, chances are it does, allows a session to be executed from a command line, you can use that. Do you mind if I hurry and jump into that?
Let's do it.
All right. So you can see I've got a DameWare RC, DameWare Mini Remote Control. And in this case, I've got DameWare loaded on this machine, and it's activated. Sweet. So here, there's the path to the DWRCC, and then there's the command line parameters. You know, -C, -H. H is the host name, so you notice we're using that variable target. Do the highlight if you want. I found these on the DameWare, on DameWare's knowledge base, where you can just say, I've used this for years, where you can find out how to initiate it. So what does that mean? Once again, I've got DameWare here. Oh, and by the way, if you want to add a shortcut, like in this case, I added Control-Alt-4. To do that, you just simply hit the keys that you want. You don't have to type it in, Control-Alt-4, and it will recognize that, throw that in there. And now I have a keyboard shortcut. So I can go out to a machine. I've got some machines that have DameWare. So we'll go to D7 Shaw Lab here. Go to Tools. There's DameWare, or I could hit Control-Alt-4, and what will it do? It'll initiate a remote control session for DameWare right there.
That's pretty fancy.
Yeah, and we've done it with other remote control utilities as well. So you just have to find out if you're like, oh, sweet, now I can jump off a remote control session from within inventory, but I use this program. Find out what those parameters are. Chances are they're going to be there.
Awesome.
Yeah, go for it. So ask another question.
Dearest Shane and Chris, is there a way you can export a custom tool? I made one that is very useful for me and would like to share it with my coworkers. Oh, that's so nice. To save them time. Sincerely, Nikolai W.
Obviously, you didn't study at the School of Lex.
Full contact IT.
Keep all the good stuff to yourself. Let everybody else figure it out.
Job security.
Okay, this one's, yes, you can. Wonderful news. Good news, everyone. I had to throw that in there. So, if you have a bunch of tools, one or multiple, in this case I have my entire folder of tools here, you can actually right-click on this and do export. And save it somewhere with a fancy name like table throwing guy.
I like to throw out, this is exporting the tools definitions. This is not exporting the actual binaries.
Yes.
So notice how Chris has a PS exec. If he exports this and then somebody imports it into their console and they don't have PS exec, that tool would fail. It does not copy those binaries. It only copies the XML, which is really the tool structure, the definition, etc.
Yep, that's a good question though. That's we share all the time. I brought them in here via an XML file. So absolutely, fantastic. Oh, speaking of which, random thought also. Speaking of remote clients. Just so you know, because inventory allows you to add machines that aren't necessarily Windows, you can just kind of have them in there. You can set up a tool for like PuTTY to do SSH or even Telnet to something else and actually connect to it directly. In fact, I have a tool just for that I like to use for my machines that I don't want to manage other than SSH.
So here you're running PuTTY with the parameter -SSH, and then their usage statement is the username. So here you're saying the username, and you're using a Windows variable. You notice that by the %.
Good, thank you for calling that out. I was going to call that out. Exactly. So notice that is different than this. Let me be specific. The environment variable on Windows, because we're running this from a command line, is different from our inventories placeholder variables that we have.
And we did that so that we wouldn't have these types of conflicts. So you could use a PDQ variable, in this case, like called username, and it would not conflict with a Windows variable.
Yep. So something to be aware of. Also, each of the different tools have an option to run and leave the window open, or to run without no window, or to close when you're done.
We'll show you that right here. This is on the shell field, where you can say, what do you want to do? No shell, leave shell open. like you'd leave the shell open on that persistent ping. Sometimes it is a true command line where you need to see something, but then just close it after you're done, or no shell.
Right.
Right. If you notice the this remote, this DameWare, I changed that to no shell because all this is doing, I don't need to open a command shell to run this or PowerShell. I'm actually just calling this exe natively. So in this case, it's no shell.
Absolutely. That's actually what I do on my WinDirstat tool. Those of you who don't use WinDirstat, it's pretty sweet. It's not the fastest option out there, but it is pretty. There's it's undocumented command line, so here's a cool little tip. You can actually just, after you call the exe, you can actually just specify what you want to scan, and it does accept UNC paths. So
Yeah, show a demo.
let's show you. I'll show you on Fry, because Fry is
Clear that
awesome.
one.
Oh, yeah, highlighter. Okay, so on Fry, we have Fry. Fry's awesome. I want to show and find out what files are where on Fry. So let's actually show those. Here we go. It's going to start doing its thing using WinDirstat, and it is beautiful. You're doing this, remember, locally on your machine, so WinDirstat has to be installed on the machine where inventory is running from. Then it kind of connects via UNC to say, give me all the things, and little
Yes.
Pac-Man.
There you go.
So it's awesome.
I like that. Yeah, sure. Throw another question out there.
We have a follow-up question from Monica K. If I wanted to build a PowerShell tool that showed a message box and had an alert beep on the target machine, where would I place the computer target in the tool? Would the current logged-in user even see or hear it?
Hi.
I'm reading that again.
I get this, but there's first and foremost, this is contrary to Microsoft's practices. Just so you're aware, they kind of do everything they can for the most part to prevent this, because you're not supposed to be able to have one instance be able to interact interactively with another instance, though there are workarounds. You use PDQ deploy interactive, you can. You use psexec interactive, you can with the PS tools. However, there's actually kind of a fancy workaround that I set up just for this. So I have my fancy other table tossing guy. Oh wait, no, excuse me. I think I moved him down. Over here, message box fun. Over here, I'm going to sum this up. You can look at this, go look at the screen later, whatever. If you want, copy this, I can show you. But what I'm doing is I'm actually creating a scheduled task on the remote computer,
Okay.
calling that scheduled task and then deleting that scheduled task, all from the context of that computer. So you can actually do message box this way.
It is a little kludgy, though.
Tis, because you can set up the scheduled task to run as the user who's logged on. So this actually works. I tested this. This will actually deploy to somebody and do all the fun things. So, for example, if we were to, let's go to Fry, because everybody loves Fry. I know that I do. And I'm
You and
everybody.
Futurama.
Oh, Futurama's the best. So, here's Fry. I'm going to come back over here to my all computers list where Fry is, because he's so cool. And then here we're going to go run that tool that I just showed you, the message box fun.
Let's go back to
Fry. And once that runs, it can take a moment.
So in this case, it's creating a Windows task,
Yeah.
running that as the logged on user.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
This is, I'm assuming it's going to show up because it showed up in my test. So, testing live. Here we
In
go.
Chris speak, that would be called fancy.
That is fancy. And I'm not seeing it, so that's kind of making me sad.
That's it.
Oh.
I can actually think of better ways of doing this.
Good luck to get interactive without deploy or psexec. You can't.
No, I'm talking about using a deploy user interactive or logged on user.
Oh, that's right. So I mean, deploy is the better way to do this, but honestly, I might have actually just messed something up right before I left. So it's already gone. It ran. Whatever. Point is, hit me up after, just and I'll get it working because.
Sorry, Monica.
Woo! I must have changed something. That's going to bother me. Okay.
That's all right.
Anyway. Yeah. Anyway, so.
Obviously, something that's very important with your utilities is you're going to have to find out not only if there's a command line, but what parameters. So you're going to have to find the usage statement for that.
Yep.
You know, I've got one out. Excuse me for one. I'm going to hurry. Just why don't you come over here real quick? I'll show you this. I wrote this a long time ago. Some of you have seen this before. I was tired of the fact that you can't use the registry to there's no way to call the registry and pass a command line parameter, yada, yada, yada. So in WinBatch, I wrote this a long time ago.
Pre-PowerShell, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, this is long time ago. But remote registry, I've got start reg 64. If I double click on this, it's going to give a little usage statement saying you need to pass the computer name after that you want to connect to. So I will just copy this. What we'll do is create a quick, let's go up here. And I'm going to go to create a new tool. Yeah, sorry, there we go, new tool. And we'll call this remote registry. Yeah. And this is where, here I'm going to, you can use this little button here to navigate to your system, but here it's a start reg 64 if you're on a 64-bit machine. And the parameter was just the computer name. So I'm going to actually you can use target or target hostname. I'll use target hostname and say OK.
Magic.
And then, absolutely, I'll just go to cat here, and actually we'll do fry.
Yes. We love fry.
Yes, absolutely.
We know, if you haven't made it clear
I haven't seen
enough.
that like 1, 2, 7 times, 10.
And there's my remote registry. Actually, I didn't close. Let me just hurry and do this. I want to go back and show you this. I don't want to show the shell, so no shell. There we go. And then go back to Fry Tools. Select Fry.
Key point right there. You got to select them.
And this will just open up the registry here and then type in the name of the computer, and voila, there's Fry. So whatever utility that you're using, make sure that you have the command line parameters all dialed in. In fact, obviously test it before you throw it all into inventory. Make sure it works from your run command or something like that.
Or live on a webcast, just saying that.
Ha! Let's throw another question out there.
Our final question of the day comes from our good friend Darrell S. With Central Server coming, will there be a tools repository for all users?
You know what? I haven't. We're still designing the inventory Central Server.
Yeah.
I like to say yes to that one, but
no
how
promises.
I guess we got to nail that one down on how we're going to handle somebody who creates a tool in the console. It's going to have to be central.
There's a lot of stuff that we're kind of putting on the plate right now and still discussing. But for the record, I personally am all for that because I like PowerShell to be everywhere. So.
But it's also you could run into some problems where you call it on the console machine and you don't want to call it on the server, etc. So yeah, obviously, Daryl, we will nail that down before it ships.
Great question.
Version 3. Anyway.
2025.
Hey, anyway, happy May the 4th, everybody. Rock and roll. Thanks for coming out.
Yay.
Thanks for joining our webcast today. Congratulations to Nick W. and Monica K., winners of PDQ swag. Send us your info at webcast@pdq.com. Also, congratulations, Elliot M. Give us a shout there on the chat. You are the winner of the PDQ Vintage Floppy Coaster. Congratulations. Thanks again, and we'll see you back here next week.